Okay, we're recording. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Hempstead Harbor Protection Committee's April meeting. We do have a quorum. As other people join, I'll let them in and we can continue. But the first order of business is to review the draft minutes from the meeting of March 10th. Has everybody gotten a chance to look at them? Does anybody have any comments?
This is Kevin from the town of North Hempstead. I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Who's that?
Levine.
Oh, Adam, okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It passes. Thank you, everybody. As you recall, at the last meeting, we had approved the dues for the year. I sent out the notices a day or two following that, and to date, I've received dues back from 2 municipalities, Roslyn Harbor and Flower Hill. Thank you very much. For the rest of you, I would appreciate if you could, if you need to, remind your village clerk or whoever pays the bills to do whatever necessary. And then,
Eric, this is Kevin with the town of North Hempstead. You didn't get anything from us yet?
not yet.
Okay, I'll have to follow up then.
Okay. I mean, it's possible it came in and I just wasn't notified. Sometimes that happens. I can check. If you can find out that it went out, I can double check with the village and make sure that maybe it has arrived. That happens sometimes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. On the agreement at the last meeting, also we approved the agreement with the Coalition of Safe Hempstead Harbor for 2021 to 2022, or I rather say we didn't approve the agreement per se, but it approved entering into an agreement and authorized me to draft it. I did do that. I got some comments back from the coalition. I incorporated them into that, and I know since then, Carol had contacted me, and apparently the laboratory, Pace Analytical, that does the nitrogen testing and calculations, enacted a price increase for some of what they do for us with almost no notice. And I know that Michelle is on here. Michelle has been talking to them, and I think they've made some accommodations. And maybe I'll let her talk it, but it may affect the amount that we authorized for the agreement. So depending on what that cost is, we may have to revisit that this evening. So Michelle, you want to explain from your end?
So the cost increase, they have a new fee for calculations to calculate total nitrogen and the total organic nitrogen. I think it's just like a basic calculation, but they're charging $3 per calculation per sample, which is quite a lot. They also increased their environmental impact fee from $3 to $15 per invoice. There's actually, for this summer, because it was so abrupt, the change, normally they make this change like in January, and so for this summer they've decided to drop the second calculation fee for total nitrogen. There's still an increased cost, I think, is for the core program. It's an increase of cost of $522. Although I think we've decided that we're actually not going to revise the agreement, at least not as far like if it requires going back to New York State and having to do like the DUAR and all of that. I think we're not going to take that route.
So the coalition is okay with the 94,000 that we authorized?
Yes.
Okay, so I can proceed with that. All right, thank you.
There are some for the program next year. While I was speaking to them, I think they're planning to increase our costs further. I don't know the exact numbers yet. I'm gonna get a call back tomorrow about it. But they may be increasing the sample evaluation costs by as much as 10%.
Okay, well, that ties in with the next item on the agenda, which is the application to the Long Island Sound, for the Long Island Sound Futures Fund grant for the 2022-2023 monitoring program. The National Fish and Wildlife Foundation had the webinar yesterday to describe this year's grant process. And basically, everything's pretty much the same with a few changes. The most important one is that they now require a 66.6% match of the money that you're requesting from them. So in other words, if you're requesting $100,000, you have to come up with a match of $66,666. That should not be a problem with us. We've always been very good with the match. Last year, we had an $81,000 match on a $75,000 grant. So I think we can make that. But so that's not an issue. The second thing is that they have now, you have to, in these grant applications, you have to show metrics. In other words, how you're going to measure everything so that they can know, what the results are, and that they're requiring more detail on the metrics and showing how that they actually fit in with the Long Island Sound Studies CCMP, that's Conservation Management Plan. So that's all doable. You guys also authorized me to apply for that for next year. The amount that you can apply for grants, water monitoring grants is $100,000. That's what we've been applying for. They've traditionally only given us 75. So I don't know, even though they have $5 million to give out this year in the Long Island Sound Futures Fund, thanks to the increases that we've been able to get in the federal budget for the Long Island Sound. In the past, it was generally $1 million a year. So it's quintupled, in the last year, this is the most they've ever given out. So maybe they'll be a little bit more lenient on giving those $100,000 out. So we'll have to see. But the grants are due, I think it's on May 23rd. So I'm going to be working with Carol and Michelle and with the village on that application to make sure it reflects what we want to do. And I guess any costs for, the monitoring will have to be factored into that. So on the Marcelino grant, I have nothing new to update, although I understand the Friends of the Bay and Manhasset Bay Protection Committee are going to be submitting some claims for us to pay. And then we get reimbursed from the state, which means I have to go through the reimbursement procedure and all that documentation, but that's part of the nature of the grant. So this grant is set to expire December 31st. So that's basically where we stand with that. That brings us to the federal infrastructure funding request to, I should have put the agenda on. Let me just share my screen and put the agenda on. I forgot to do that. Hold on a second here. Agenda. Okay, can everybody see that? Okay. All right, so we are at the point of the, and this agenda has changed a little bit from the one I sent out. We've added a couple things on there. So federal infrastructure request to Representative Swazi. At the last meeting, Carol and I announced that, we were working with a number of other organizations to compile infrastructure needs and with dollar amounts that we could get to Congressman Swazi so that he would have ammunition to make the case to have wastewater and drinking water money, significant money in the federal infrastructure bill. At that time, they thought that they might be acting on the bill within a few weeks. So we had a tight time turnaround of trying to get projects in by April 1st. That which was really less than 2 weeks. I think everybody had to get them to us. While we didn't get anything from any of our Hempstead Harbor municipal members, which is, I was kind of surprised. And, to be honest with you, not, pleased that none of our members sought to take advantage of that, especially since this whole initiated because Swazi wanted to know what he could do to help Hempstead Harbor. But in that short period of time, we did get a number of projects from across the North Shore that totaled $1.13 billion. And that's really only the tip of the iceberg. So there's a lot of, and there are very good projects out there that really need to be done and just haven't been done because, the money hasn't been there. So earlier today, Carol and I had a conference call with the Nature Conservancy and Citizens Campaign for the Environment to discuss a little bit more on where we go from here. And the upshot of that is that right now, it looks like the earliest that Congress will be voting on any or even debating the infrastructure bill will be in July. So we have some more time to put things together. And we would like to ask everybody to go back to the drawing board, see what you need to, what you'd like to put in there. Obviously, it doesn't mean you're going to get it, but it does give ammunition to Swazi and others to push for this kind of money. And if you've been seeing any of the reports on the infrastructure bill, it's very rarely do you hear any mention of water and when they do, it's basically drinking water. I haven't seen any mention of wastewater, which is pretty critical to our economies and our property values and everything else. So I would ask that each of you go back to your municipalities. I mean, I think Glen Cove's got its own water department. I mean, you can ask for things like new wells, replacing aging pipe. I can send a list around to everybody of what others have put in. Things like, expanding the sewer system to Crescent Beach people, which was sort of put on the side because it was too expensive. Well, it doesn't hurt to ask. I mean, the most they can do is say, no, we can't fund that. So there's a lot of things that can be done. And when I send that list around, it might give you some ideas. Congressman Swazi is working very hard on eliminating the tax on grants for septic system upgrades. As you recall, when Suffolk County did that, they were taken by surprise when the IRS decided that those are taxable, and all the people that got these grants and had a lot of money now had to include that in their income. So I think there's a pretty good chance that he may be successful on that. But what we're planning to do is give another maybe 2 or 3 weeks to compile additional projects. And if you don't have, dollar amounts for it, that's fine. At least we can list them. But also, when you give me the projects and the costs, if you have them, put them in priority order. What's most important to you? What's second important? So, because when we submit this by letter to Swazi, and we're also going to send it to Senator Schumer, and copy our state legislators, we want them to see up front, like, what's the most important things. So that's what we're going to do. And we are going to, try to get as many sign-ons on the letter as possible. And get that to those, all those people sometime like maybe in the next month or so. Secondly, I got a call, and Carol got a call yesterday from Tom Swazi on another issue. And that this year, for the first time in years, in the House of Representatives, they've are once again allowing Congress people to have what they call earmarks that they can add to the budget bill. And each member of Congress is allowed 10 earmarks. And so those, are pretty much, I won't say they're guaranteed, but it's if they're given that opportunity, it's very likely to happen. So the reason why Tom called me was he has this idea, and this is only exploring it at this time. It's not to be made public, although because we're announcing it at this public meeting, it will be in the minutes and recorded and all that. But he wants to explore the idea of doing shellfish seeding in all of the bays and harbors in his district. And his district goes into Queens, but he's not talking about Queens. So it would be from Manhasset Bay, potentially all the bays out to Northport Bay, Northport Harbor. There's a lot of questions with that. Obviously, you don't just throw seed down anywhere in a harbor. You want to make sure the bottom is suitable. That's not going to get this go into muck and the seed be suffocated. So there's questions of identifying the bottom areas. There's also questions of how much seed would you really need to do to make a difference, and are there suppliers that can supply that much seed, and when could we get it? When would it have to be done? What size seed? I mean, you can get very small seed that you need a lot more of it because the survival rate is less when you have a little tiny seed than a larger seed, or some places do adult, full-size, full-grown clams and oysters where you need much less, and they're much more able to survive and then spawn to create more. So there's a lot of questions. Today, I did speak to a colleague of mine who's very involved with the Long Island divers, and they have helped on a lot of projects. In fact, we had divers help identify underwater lands in Hempstead Harbor years ago when then County Executive Swazi had a similar seeding campaign, and they identified those areas where we put the clams and oysters in Oyster Bay Harbor. So the divers would be willing to help. Also, Friends of the Bay in Oyster Bay recently received 2 underwater drones. And these are pretty professional pieces of equipment. And we believe that the underwater drones could greatly help by scouting the bottom, and we can see the bottom, and cover a lot more area quicker than divers can. So I think identifying the areas to place the shellfish seed would be very doable. We did have also, Carol and I had a call with Steve Kester from Oyster Bay, who's very involved with seeding operation in Oyster Bay and Cold Spring Harbor, and had a very productive meeting with him. He believes that, with enough advance notice that the hatcheries could produce whatever size seed we wanted for next year. It would be too short this year because they've already, committed to what they're growing for their customers. But that does also seem doable. If we wanted to do adult clams, which we need much less of them, it's possible that we could, say, hire the baymen to dig them from other areas and bring them to us. Congressman Swazi's talking in roughly $200,000 to $400,000 for this project. It sounds like a lot, but when we were going through the math and the cost for shellfish, it basically at larger size seed, it comes out to about $28,000 for an acre for of, because you need about 1 million seed clams for 1 acre. So it probably cost about 28,000 just for the seeds. So for just 1 acre, and so obviously 1 acre is not a lot in a big bay. So we may have to talk about maybe not doing all the bays, you know, that kind of thing. But in order, and the reason why he called me is he wants one organization, one entity to coordinate all of this for all the bays that are done, and asked if the Hempstead Harbor Protection Committee could serve that role. I told him, you know, I'd be happy to help, especially because we'd like to see some more seating in Hempstead Harbor, but I would have to bring it before this committee to make sure you guys have no problem with me, you know, spending my time on doing that. Again, this is really just exploratory at this time. You know, maybe it's going to be deemed not feasible. Maybe the money's not going to come through, but you know, he was anxious to get started on it. So that's why I'm bringing it to you, and now open for discussion if anybody has questions or comments about us getting involved in this. Nobody? Do people think it's a good idea?
All right, I was muted.
Worthwhile
Okay.
explore.
Did you determine there were a lot of areas in Hempstead Harbor that could be seeded when you had the divers?
Yes. I mean, that's, we'd have to do it again, but we have a little bit more data for Hempstead Harbor because we've done a couple shellfish density surveys over the years. So we know pretty much what the bottom was, you know, say 5 years ago. I think the town Oyster Bay is considering doing it again this year. At least that's the last I heard. So we may be able to get, you know, even better information this year. But, you know, in the past, there were some areas that were, you know, pretty good and some areas that were, you know, pretty muddy.
Did they do the oysters, a spat on oysters?
That's a possibility too. But from what we understand, that the DEC does allow seeding of, you know, just regular seed or adult shellfish without being, you know, spat on shell.
Shells.
So that's obviously something we have to explore with DEC too, but they have allowed it before, and you know, and chances are they may allow it again, especially if it's, you know, Congress.
Well, what do you think? Are they gonna grow and thrive?
If they're in a good area, they should. I mean, you're never going to get 100%. Apparently, with you know, you get, the smaller they are, the more die off that you have. So you get to, you know, if you look doing 10 millimeter seeds, you need a million and a half, a million per acre in order to end up with 25 adults per square meter. That's apparently the density that you want to see to have a, you know, a thriving population. If you could do 20 milliliter, you only need 500,000. So in other words, about half of those will die off normally, you know, if you put the real small seed in.
And well, so would we lose some to, you know, harmful algae blooms that we hear so much about? Or would that wipe them out, or?
I
I
mean,
mean, why?
it depends on the type of bloom. I mean, some of them, you know, I mean, there's algae blooms that are toxic to shellfish. Yes, there's others that are not. You know, that's obviously something that would need to be considered too. The history of harmful algal blooms in those bays.
Mhm.
You lose more to predation, not algae blooms.
What are the predators?
Crabs, they eat them like popcorn shrimp.
Crabs, starfish. I mean, the larger ones, obviously, like gulls get them, but
This is Dan Fucci from Nassau County. One of the 9 element scenarios that they're considering looking at is to see the impact of bivalves on nitrogen reduction. They may actually run some scenarios on that. So that might be long-term helpful to know.
well, you do realize that the coalition is doing that right now, measuring that now.
Mhm. Because there's programs on the north and south shore. I think that
Yeah.
the 9 element will look at various bivalves and actually some they might work with seaweed as well. So
Yeah, no, I mean, that's certainly, all this bioextraction is certainly a selling point to pushing for approval for this kind of program from DEC.
right.
So does anybody have any objection to pursuing this?
Could you go over again what our involvement would be, your involvement would be?
Yeah, I
how
mean-
much time is it gonna take? How much of your time is it gonna take?
It's hard to say how much time. I mean, need to do a little bit of research into, all the issues that I just mentioned. But, it'll be similar to what I've done with the Marcelino grant for the 3 protection committees, only a little wider geographic area and more people involved. It'll be involved, talking to DEC, finding out about the permits, getting prices, dealing with Swazi staff to say, this is what we found, this is what we can do. Is this amenable to Tom? And then once we have all that, then we sit and wait until we find out that he's gotten the money for it. And then I guess there would have to be some sort of agreement, a contract, a grant. He wasn't sure whether it be an EPA grant. He didn't know at this point where the money would actually come from within the federal government. But wherever it is, then they would have some procedures, and like anything, then it's just a matter of, we might have to go out to bid for the purchase of the seeds or the clams because of the amount that is. So there'd be a bid process to go through, and then awarding it and then carrying it out. Working with, he wants to include the Bayman and Oyster Bay somehow in the project. So it's really just figuring out the role of everybody and coordinating the schedules and then getting it done. And then
Is this earmark money, did you say?
yeah, this is his idea of one of his earmarks.
Okay. You expect cooperation from the other bays, groups?
Yes, I mean, certainly Oyster Bay, Cold Spring Harbor, the Bayman, I think, would certainly support that. Friends of the Bay, would support it. Town of Oyster Bay, I'm sure would. Manhasset Bay, I don't know. I mean, that's one that we might want to say it may not be worth it to put too many clams in. It's because it's, I don't know what the bottom is, but it's, probably a long way off before it could be considered to be open for shellfishing because of its proximity and all of that. We don't have to look at all that. Just see, how far can, say he gets, $400,000. How much seed could you buy and make a difference in the harbors? How many acres could you do? You got all those calculations have to be done. But Steve from Oyster Bay is very good at all of this stuff. So I'm sure he will be a real asset to work with me on that.
Sounds pretty cool to me.
All right, I'm not hearing anybody objecting to it, so we'll explore it
Kevin's
further.
unusually quiet. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. The annual joint meeting, we have tentatively, not more than tentatively, I mean, it's pretty much set. We're just finalizing an agenda. It'll be virtual, you know, just like this meeting, next in May, on May 20th at 7 p.m. And it's going to focus on bioextraction, very timely topic. What we're looking at doing is having a presentation on oyster gardening with Rob Craffa from Oyster Bay Cold Spring Harbor Protection Committee, who's got an incredible program that's last year had 100 citizens involved, all of whom paid like $175 to participate, and grew you know, oysters not for consumption, but to help water quality in 3 locations. And this year they expect to get 150 people in 5 locations. So he will give a presentation on that. Then we will also have a presentation on kelp farming, kelp growing, which also extracts nutrients. And then the coalition's monitoring program of the shellfish seed and the flupsies, and to see, you know, their effect on reducing nitrogen and bacteria. And then Dan Fucci talking about the 9-element plan to reduce nitrogen. So that's how it's pretty much lined up. We still have to work out the fine details, but I think everybody's agreed to that, and we've got the date. So stay tuned on that. Which brings me to the next topic is shellfish seeding. I did that annual joint meeting. I want to remind you that the annual MS4 reports are due to DEC on June 1st. I did send everybody our protection committee's activities that you can use as credit towards those permits, and the documentation you need to show with that. So if anybody has questions, just let me know. I did want to, did I put this, I forgot to add this to the final agenda, but I want to talk about an oyster gardening pilot project in Hempstead Harbor itself. I was approached by a member of the Hempstead Harbor Club, which is a yacht club in Glen Cove, about doing a shellfish garden, oyster garden at the club. So we did speak with Rob Craffa, discuss it. I did go out this past weekend and see the site. She did go bring it up before her board on Monday. The board still has some questions, but is interested in pursuing the pilot. This would probably not take place until next year. We would need to get DEC permission. DEC has in the past not as frowned upon doing these kind of projects in uncertified waters, which is, you know, their club is in uncertified waters, but the door is starting to open up because they did allow a project in uncertified waters in Oyster Bay or Cold Spring Harbor this year, using what they call spat on shell, which is where the little oyster seeds are attached themselves to an old oyster shell, and then they grow on the shell. So it really doesn't lend itself to harvesting, because no commercial harvester is going to sit there and pull all the oysters off of the old shells. And the idea is that when you grow them in these cages, they're like rectangular boxes, you know, with, you know, plastic mesh around them. They grow in cages that are suspended from a cable that attached to like buoys on each side. And you have to every week or two bring them ashore, wash them down, because they tend to accumulate with stuff, you know, on the outside of the cages, clean them. and then put them back. And it's amazing how they grow in the space of just maybe 3 or 4 months. And they're suspended off the bottom, so they're not subject to predators from the bottom. And obviously, because they're in a cage, they're also protected from predators that way. And then, that's basically how that program would work. I said that we would be glad, if my committee approved it, I would be glad to work with them on this project. It would certainly help the water quality. I personally have signed up to be an oyster gardener in Bayville in one of Rob's programs this summer. So I will get my own personal experience doing this and be in much better shape. And the member from the Hempstead Harbor Club is also doing it in Oyster Bay Harbor this summer too. So the two of us will both have, firsthand experience and then can transfer that to Hempstead Harbor. And doing that will certainly help with the 9-element plan and all the other efforts to reduce nitrogen in the harbor. And if it works there, I can see doing something similar, maybe at the Seacliff Yacht Club and maybe some other areas. And it seems to be a lot of interest around Long Island is growing with these oyster gardens. So if nobody objects, I'd like to continue working on that also. Okay. Not hearing any objections. Let's move on to water quality matters. And maybe Michelle, do you want to give us an update on the water monitoring program?
Sure. So today was the last day of the winter monitoring. We had received reports about people seeing lion's mane jelly and bunker in the harbor. And I did see a lion's mane jellyfish today. And then apparently there were bunker in the marina in Glen Cove this morning. So at this point, we have to finalize the data entry and send that to Fuss and O'Neill for the annual report. And then the next big thing is going to be diving into the annual report.
Okay.
Big task.
And how about the unified water study?
So we received the equipment last week. It's been, the Eureka sonde was reconditioned and calibrated. I'll be doing the same with our backup equipment, the YSI Pro Plus. Tentatively, the program is going to start May 11th. And Carol wanted me to point out again that it's a coalition program.
Right. Okay. And what about starting this year's core program?
The core program is start date is set for May 19th.
All right. Scudder's Pond, as you recall, we did a temporary repair, a couple temporary repairs, which seems to have held. But I recently came across a grant opportunity through the DEC that's funding dam repairs or dam improvements for critical dams. To be a critical dam, you have to be in a county that has a certain type of plan, which Nassau County does. It's not clear that this little Scudder's Weir might fit that category, but the village is looking into it. And if they do, then that could fund, significant repair, such as like was originally envisioned when we did the Scudder's Pond restoration. We were going to put a two-stage weir in there, a concrete weir, but that had to be put on hold because it was found out that the natural gas line goes literally right through where the weir structure would be, and they would. We have to see whether that line has been moved. I know that the National Grid did put a new line in to, I guess, increase the size of it a few years ago. So I'm not sure whether that's still in the path of this, but that's something that's, obviously got to be looked at. The pathogen.
Do you want me to say anything about the Flupsies monitoring?
Oh, sure.
I think the latest that I've heard is that there's going to be five Flupsies in Tappan Marina.
That's been increased to 6. We found out today.
Oh, nice. Okay. And with 800,000 sea clams in each.
Yep. Which brings it to about a little under 5 million will be growing in Tappan Marina.
Nice. And so the monitoring for that's going to start is the same day as the core program, May 19th. And we're still waiting on a date for when the Flupsies will be installed and when the sea clams will arrive.
Excellent. Okay. The pathogen TMDL plan, I have not, there's nothing new to report. They were going to get me the maps that they were looking at so we could each take a look at it and see if there's any change, any inaccuracies, but I did follow up with DEC on that and still haven't heard back. So I don't know what's happening with that. So, and speaking of plans, that brings us to the 9-element plan. Dan, is anything new to report?
The DEC and Stony Brook and the county are reviewing some of the comments that were provided by the stakeholder group relative to excuse me, discussing certain types of scenarios that would be run into the nitrogen loading model. Some of the comments we received back in terms of what the stakeholders would like to see include bioextraction modeling. There seem to be a lot of comments about wanting to see the reductions in percentage of, if we reduce fertilizer countywide by 25% or 50 or 75%, what impact that would have on nitrogen reductions countywide. There was, of course, looking at the alternative septic program. If X amount of parcels or homes are converted to an alternative septic program, innovative technology, what would potential nitrogen reductions be utilizing those technologies, and also looking at specific areas, or possibly looking at specific areas where we may want to convert areas that are septic to, and somehow through future funding, what have you, get those online to a adjacent sewage treatment facility. I think one of the major areas that they may look at is Point Lookout on the South Shore. I know the Manhasset Bay Protection Committee had asked if we can look at the Port Washington district, running scenarios on that. Going back to the septic program, there was a discussion maybe looking at the Crescent Beach area. If the areas in Crescent Beach were to buy into the program, what the reductions would be. So in some of these programs, we're also looking not only generically, but looking at specific targeted areas. If we were to put certain areas online. Another area that was discussed as a possibility is a small commercial area in the village of Bayville that they would like to potentially maybe hook into the Birches facility with some of the excess capacity there. Again, this does not put anyone on the hook to do the work, but it's just a matter of running scenarios generically and site-specific locations. So the short of it as of now is I am working with Stony Brook and the DEC to kind of fine-tune, look at the stakeholder thoughts, have conversations internally with the county, and kind of come up with a fine-tuned list or definitive list as to what reduction scenarios would be run. And then at that point, we would certainly share that list with the stakeholders. So that's pretty much the update at this point.
That's great. I'm glad to see that you're looking at incorporating all of those. I also want to point out that back at the last meeting that we had, which was July 10th of 2020, the coalition and the protection committee both prepared a list of questions that were submitted, and we finally got some answers to those questions, and both Carol and I are reviewing those answers. I'm not sure we understand everything, or that they responded totally to everything we asked for, but we're still looking at it, and
Okay.
we'll have to come back with some, some further questions.
Okay.
All right. That brings us to the bacteria in Powerhouse drain sub-watershed. I don't think there's anything new since the last meeting, unless you have some new data that was unexpected.
I mean, the last two times when I got a direct sample and the bacteria levels weren't high, but that really hasn't been the case for the majority of the winter monitoring program.
Okay. And speaking of bacteria, Glen Cove Creek. Yeah, at the last meeting, Dan had asked me to send him a request to see if we could get the animal shelters kennel floor drains checked to make sure, to verify that they're not connected to the storm drain system. I haven't heard back. I don't know if you were able to do that, Dan.
Did I send the request, or did Rocco?
Well, you asked me to remind you to send you an email, and you were going to look into it.
I have not checked into that, but what I have done, Dan and Eric, is I met with Fabco to talk about that filter at that catch basin where all the water's coming off of the yard waste site. So I can definitely talk to the animal shelter and review that with them. I mean, the employees that have been there for a very long time were very confident that it's not connected, but by all means, yeah, we can absolutely check it out.
I mean, a simple dye test, you could probably show that. If it's connected, it'll end up coming into the creek.
Is that a Glen Cove animal shelter, or is that?
Yes. Well, it's owned by the city of Glen Cove, and they have a not-for-profit running it.
Okay.
So
in that case, would the city have any authority to do the dye testing themselves?
the city
I mean,
owns the building.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's why I'm confused. I don't remember. I mean, I may have. I'm pretty good with if it's somebody else's responsibility to make sure that's it's on them and not me. But that's why I was a little confused. I thought it was a city facility.
I think it was because whatchamacallit, the plant operator was going to do that and never did it.
Okay.
They offered to have that checked out.
Oh, the Suez, right?
Suez, yeah.
Hmm.
So maybe you were thinking that you would go back to Suez and say, we're going to do this. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
I'll give you a call tomorrow, Dan. We'll see what we can work out.
All right. We'll try to coordinate something with that.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Oh, by the way, Rocco, on the Hempstead Harbor Club oyster gardening.
Yes.
The woman that I've been dealing with is Terry Machada.
Yeah.
She asked if you were going to be present at this meeting, that I could let you know that she would like to get in touch with you and maybe Ann to discuss this. I don't know whether they're, want to see whether the city has an issue or they need permission or whatever to put anything down, but she wants,
Okay.
she would like to meet.
All right. No problem. We'll give her a call.
Okay. that brings us to the Nessa County Septic Grant Program. We got some, finally, some good news. It looks like the county is going to, and the Soil and Water District are going to roll out the program next week on Earth Day with a press conference at North Hempstead Beach Park with the county executive and possibly with the lieutenant governor, who's going to be on the island, and with the county executive for a couple things in the morning prior to that. We don't know for sure whether she's going to be able to accompany for the press conference. So it looks like we'll be able to start taking applications online next week and start working that way. So I know I had a conference call this morning with Brian Schneider and Mary Studdert, and they're finalizing the website, I guess, at a meeting tomorrow with their IT people, and then we're going to do a dry run, I think, on Monday, and everything. If there's any kinks, we try to work those out, and then announce it on next Thursday. So stay tuned. And that brings us to the anti-litter campaign. Anything new on that, Dan?
Yeah, I really don't want to speak too much on that right now because I know they're looking to, again, Earth Day is going to be quite busy for the county, but they're looking to try to have some sort of maybe even a press release or some information released on Earth Day about the anti-litter program. The county is just trying to fine tune some of the recommendations for the program now. So I really don't want to mention specifically what they are in case, some of the recommendations aren't approved or considered. But it's a combination of public education, social media, website development, maybe some anti-litter app, and of course we're looking to increase our street sweeping and operations, and maybe adopt this stormwater basin. A couple of ideas are floating around. So again, stay tuned. Hopefully you'll have a better idea on Earth Day. So I at this point, the county is considering various recommendations and trying to fine tune them.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, that brings us to organizations. The Nessa County Soil and Water Conservation District. The district, unfortunately, is losing its district manager, who submitted his resignation. He wants to go back to school and become a hydrogeologist, which is great. But
I tried to talk him out of it, but
yeah, no, it came as a real surprise to everybody. He was so dedicated. I mean, did a great job. I mean, he was really excellent. But he's sticking around at least till this week. We haven't had a final date with him, but we have a board meeting on Friday. We did do an advertisement for applications for the position. It's a nice position. It pays up to $75,000 plus benefits, and nice benefits, including the state pension plan, health benefits, all of that. You get to work in a historic mansion on a nature preserve, and with a lot of good projects and some really good staff. So we did get some applications in, and the deadline, if anybody's still interested, is still time. The deadline is tomorrow, because it's the 15th, which is tomorrow, and then the board will be discussing those applications at its meeting on Friday. So anybody wants more information, I did send it around to everybody. If anybody wants more information, I'd be glad to get that to you.
how many applications did you receive approximately?
We received, I believe, I think we received 5.
Okay.
So far.
Right.
All right. Friends of Cedarmere.
Well, Friends of Cedarmere, we restored a century-old greenhouse, and it's being fully used now by the Cornell cooperative people. They're increasing the size of their gardens, putting in more raised beds. They put in a good sized row of raspberry bushes, and now they're going to put in grapes, as well. And we received $10,000 grant from the Soil and Water Conservation District.
You didn't get that yet.
We received an informal report. The grapevine says.
The review team recommended it to the full board. The full board has to approve it on Friday.
Okay, well, we're hopeful. In any case, that'll allow us to winterize it and, just put in automatic irrigation. We thought of putting more shelves up because we have it's like a lean-to type of greenhouse. So this is the wall facing the sun has a room for shelves to increase this workspace. And that's something that's, well, the key is that we've got the Cornell people utilizing it, which is great.
I also want to just jump back for a second. The Hempstead Harbor Protection Committee applied to the Soil and Water Conservation District for $5,000 in funding for the winter monitoring program, the upcoming winter monitoring program. And the review team recommended that award also. So expect on Friday that we will have that $5,000 to cover our winter program.
Nice. Oh, and we are also hoping on getting involved in that oyster project you were talking about, at Cedarmere, because we have a nice shorefront. I don't know how many yards, 5, 7, maybe 300 yards or more of intertidal zone, and we think we can get some stuff going, some cages in there.
All right, thank you. Brings us to municipal updates. Who wants to start? Flower Hill? Gary?
Sure. This month we're going to be, well, everyone knows, right? We're celebrating Arbor Day, and at the end of the month, we are a Tree City USA community, so we will be doing a tree seedling giveaway on that day to our community. And also we are applying this month, or making, I guess, the pledge, the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. We, as was announced last month, we are gonna put together a pollinator monarch butterfly garden in our Flower Hill Park, and along with that, we will take the Mayor's Monarch Pledge and do some programs and whatever else we need to do to fulfill our obligation.
Great. North Hempstead? Yep.
Yeah, Eric, I really don't have anything to report at this time.
Okay. How about Adam, Rosslyn Harbor?
No updates at this time, man.
Okay. Rocco?
Well, the filter I told you about, and I guess the only other thing we've got is the East Island Tidal Gates project. We have a pre-bid walkthrough tomorrow morning since we redesigned the scope and are going back out. So hopefully we'll have some contractors ready to go pretty soon.
What's happening with the Crescent Beach remediation?
That, yeah, so the private property owners are working with a contractor to get the Helix system on their property. So that was, I know they took some time to hire an actual contractor, because the one that was recommended by H2M actually backed out. So they, I believe, picked one. I think they were supposed to pick one last week, and they were going to move forward with it. And we were also talking to some contractors about the sand replenishment. We were trying to get the actual exact sand to match. Yeah, that's pretty much where we're at with that right now. And yeah, I spoke to you about the pipe. There was a pipe there that was a culvert that they scoped and cleaned out, which was looked like it was clogged, which is definitely going to help as well.
Oh, good. I didn't hear that the property owners agreed to put those in. That's excellent.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay, nobody's here from Oyster Bay. Seacliff, anything, Tom?
I just from driving the road there by Tappan Beach and all, they're sealing up, replacing the concrete. So I'm talking about the sewer project. So I guess that's well close to finished, I would think.
Good. Okay. And then I guess that Nessa County, Dan?
I would, other than what I talked about before, I have no other updates, so.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else?
Eric, this is Kevin with North Hempstead. Have you had any discussions with the developer at 145 Shore Road?
Not since months ago. I know.
Okay, you don't know anything. You haven't been involved with the scoping for the EIS.
I was in the scoping session, but I didn't talk to the developer. I mean,
Well, I just thought maybe that would be something that you would want to put on the agenda or talk about, or no?
Is that the Southern Land thing?
Yeah. I have brought it up in the past. I mean, I can send the information around to everybody. As you know, the Protection Committee does not take stands for or against any projects that come before our member municipalities. So we are not, for or against it. If the municipality wishes our input to see, what can be done to, help mitigate any potential measures, we'd be glad to offer some advice. We've done that in the past with Glen Cove, with the Garfies Point project, but not recently. That offer stands, but without being asked to get involved in it by the municipality, the only thing I can do is give everybody the information about what's proposed, and that I have done. So.
Yeah, Eric, nobody's asking or suggesting that you get involved in anything. I just thought maybe you want to bring what the committee did to the scoping. That's all. We have expertise in our hands. We know the situation in terms of stormwater runoff. We have many professionals. I just thought maybe you wanted to update the committee on where it was, just from your from Hempstead Harbor's perspective.
One of the interesting things, Kevin, is that, as I understand it now, they have a certain amount of acreage, which goes into the formula of what they can build. But some of that acreage is underwater. And so I guess traditionally, there's that high tide line where your property ends, but this property goes into the water.
Most of the property that they
Majority.
is like 5 of the 7 something acres are underwater land, and they counting on how much they can build based on the size of that underwater land. I've never seen that done before.
Nobody has.
And then they also do want to use part of North Hempstead Beach Park's parking lot for their private parking, which, there was a problem in the past when buses were parked there because it's considered alienation of parkland, and you can only do that with the permission from the state legislature. So I don't see how they can, count on have their, tenants park in the town park to live in their apartments.
Kevin, you forgot about the Krusty Krab when you think about underwater development.
Yes, under the sea, Krusty Krab.
Oh, Eric, how could they possibly use underwater ground? Are they claiming that it was
No, but when
dock
you
space or something?
Well, they are going to put in docks and boat slips and all that. But when you under the town code, which decides how much you can develop, how many square feet of building
Development rights, yeah.
is based on how much land you have. So
Well,
they're counting that land and using that to calculate how much they can put. And I think this is a 7-story building.
But this is land that's not owned by them. Isn't it the mean high tide line or something that?
I think their deed does show that they own it. And
Yeah,
there are
that's the
some-
weird thing, that's the deed, right? It's like they have air rights for the harbor.
There are some strange situations like that in Hempstead Harbor. I mean, in Sands Point, I think they own some of the underwater lands out into the harbor.
The homeowners?
Don't.
Of the town,
Oh,
which came up, if you want, not to digress, but if you wanted some story from our town, Eric, one of the things is what to do about the litter, the noise pollution, et cetera. And that did come up, that the town has certain rights. It's just, unless we're going to build a navy, there's no real way to enforce that. And then given what's going on in the world, the town's, got to be sensitive about the police going and scaring people off.
I thought that the village owned that underwater land. I thought that.
Yeah, no, they do. That's one of the issues that comes up, because you do get kind of a crowd of, boat people, if you will, who come and leave all sorts of debris washes up on the beaches. It's really about the pollution. And where's that coming from? It's from people who kind of pull up and drop anchor on a summer day. And so one of the ways to mitigate that would be to say, well, this is, it's like territorial waters of the town, and you can't drop anchor here without permission. But the town's got to be, especially now, really sensitive to, even if you had unlimited naval resources, to go and shoo people away.
They could deputize you.
Yeah, the only thing I scare away is the kids.
Sands Point Navy against the Bronx Navy.
Yeah. All this is not for the minutes necessarily, Eric.
Yeah.
It's being recorded.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. All right. Anybody have anything else?
The coalition's having a Scudder's Pond cleanup on April 24th, 9 to 11.
24th, 9 to 11.
And we're encouraging people to bring plastic buckets to so that we can consolidate the garbage into larger bags.
Sounds good. If you have something like a flyer you can send to me, I'd be glad to, send it around.
Okay.
Anybody else doing anything for Earth Day?
Going to dinner.
That's always good. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We talked a lot of things tonight, and I appreciate you all being here. And hopefully, you all make the Joint Protection Committee next month. And with that, I'm going to stop the share and end the program. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.